We dodged a bullet today, but the serious money reckons we could be hit with 4 rate rises next year. It's economic poison. You watch what happens to your house price. There's a black market for unvaccinated workers emerging.
Did you have a win?
I didn't bet. I need all my money to pay my mortgage. You will too. The Reserve Bank didn't raise interest rates today. And every Australian reckons they're a winner, not just the ones who picked very elegant. We dodged a bullet today, but the serious money reckons we could be hit with 4 rate rises next year because of last week's news that inflation was up much more than we anticipated. We want inflation to be between 2 and 3%. That's the rate at which we think the economy is just humming along nicely. Any less than that and your spending decisions start getting skewed. If you think something's going to cost the same tomorrow as it does today, you don't feel any urgency to go to the shops. If inflation is negative and you know something's going to be cheaper tomorrow than today, then you definitely keep the MasterCard in its holster. Deflation has happened. June 1962, we had minus 1.3%. People not going to the shops means the shop owner sacks some workers, blah, 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 before you know it, you're living in a shanty town. Inflation that's higher than 3% means life gets too expensive. Unions start going for 5 or 6% pay rises. The higher wages are a cost of business. That pushes up the prices of goods and services those companies provide, which requires more wage rises.
And so on, and so on, and so on.
It's called a wage price spiral, and it happened here. When inflation's up because people are spending too much and too fast, we push up interest rates, as anyone with a home loan in the early 1990s would remember. More money on the mortgage means less money for the pub. Supply outstrips demand and prices fall.
We're spending big time at the moment.
We are. Spending is up 93% at department stores in WA, 63% at hardware stores. The danger is prices are going up for the wrong reason. Not that the economy's overheating because we're spending like drunken sailors. The Australian economy is actually not in great shape.
Game? What's a game?
Victoria and New South Wales have been shut down for ages. We only just avoided a recession. Inflation is up because of supply bottlenecks caused by COVID. So we're going to raise interest rates at a time when the economy is already fragile. It's a nightmare economic phenomenon and it's called stagflation. Slow economic growth, high unemployment and rising prices all at the same time. It's economic poison. You watch what happens to your house price. If we're hit with prolonged stagflation, anyone who bought a house in Perth or the southwest in the past 12 months is going straight into 5 years of negative equity.
You're really a glass half empty kind of guy, aren't you?
It gets worse. When interest rates go up, it's not just you and me that end up paying more to service our debt. It's also Josh Frydenberg. And when you owe as much money as Josh does, even the smallest rise in interest rates costs a bomb. He doesn't go to the bank for a loan like the rest of us do. He issues bonds.
Nothing wrong with bonds.
Not that kind of bond. Josh Frydenberg says, if you give me $1 million now, I'll pay you 15 grand a month for 10 years, and once that time's up and the bond reaches maturity, I'll give you back the original $1 million. That, in a nutshell, is how international debt markets work. When inflation is going up, the people who buy those bonds as investments, like your super fund, realise the $1 million they're getting back in 10 years is worth a lot less than it is today. So to make up for that, the super fund managers tell Josh they want 20 grand a month, not 15. The interest rate on the debt, or the yield as it's known, is suddenly 2% instead of 1.5.
Not that bad.
The Australian government has $1 trillion worth of bonds on issue.
Don't ask me to get out the calculator.
Just 0.5% is a lot when you're talking that amount of money.
So why the bottleneck?
Energy is a major one. Price of coal and gas are through the roof, which is prohibiting business. But there are others. We've got one happening down at Fremantle right now. The MUA is threatening to strike. Again.
I thought that was over.
You're thinking of the issue with Cube.
Ah, so you're talking about the strike with Patrick's.
No, this is different to that one as well. This one isn't with a stevedoring company, it's with Fremantle Port itself. The union had threatened to walk off the job today. It was sheer coincidence that it happened to be Melbourne Cup and wharfies all love a punt. They turned up today, but only after the port agreed to meet with them. But that won't stop them striking again tomorrow or the next day. They're going to refuse to tie up any ships from the shipping line Ocean Network Express, which carries most of the Christmas presents we are about to buy each other.
The wharfies are going to kill Christmas.
Or at least make it a lot more expensive.
I hate Christmas!
Reduced supply, the bottleneck, means some prices go up, which feeds into inflation, which causes interest rates to rise. Even if Freo Port blinks and gives the MUA what it wants, you can bet they'll find some other reason to walk off the job. It's what they do best. It'll probably be compulsory COVID jabs. They've got the shits with that at the moment.
Well, a handful of wharfies have been sacked.
Yeah, and they'll all be on Facebook looking for work. There's a black market for unvaccinated workers emerging. People who have lost their jobs are taken to social media to find work with sympathetic employers. And the anti-vaxxers are getting sneaky. Have a look at the latest offering from a mob calling themselves Professionals for Medical Informed Consent and Non-Discrimination. It's a pro forma document that's made to look like an official exemption issued by a doctor. You can get one for your kids. And there's even a version tailored for medical professionals. The really crafty anti-vaxxers are getting genuine COVID double jab certificates and doctoring them. Mark McGowan passed the buck to WA businesses to police his new laws. If people like Tony Galati don't recognise a forged document, they face $100,000 fines for not enforcing the January 31 mandate. But when you've got no staff and you're coming into your busiest time of year at Christmas, you can see why some small business owners are going to risk it and say, well, I thought the document was real, even though it's quite obvious that I think I have already had COVID so I can't get it again, isn't grounds for a legitimate medical exemption.
Chris Dawson will let them off if they get caught.
He's gone soft. Dawson and Mark McGowan position themselves as the hard men of the hard border. Nobody was getting through.
Eddie Maguire has been denied entry to WA ahead of the AFL Grand Final.
Well, almost nobody.
I've just signed a special exemption for the Easter Bunny.
Ethan Carter wants to see his dying mum. He arrived in Sydney from LA on Monday morning and pleaded to be allowed into WA. And Dawson blinked.
I felt gutted for him.
It's heartbreaking. But what happens now, Chris? Ethan's not the only person in this situation. And while we're at it, can someone tell me how Kate Walsh was allowed back in? You know she's not a real doctor, right, Chris?
I'm her doctor, me.
I'm Ben Harvey. For more Up Late, click the subscribe button below.